Well, hey, you didn't say you were going to be here. I'm glad you're here. We've got a project I'm working on. Let's take a look at it. So, I get this. I mean, let's be blunt. It's kind of a nasty piece of wood. It's a plank, big maple plank that I bought. It was slightly hit by some ambrosia beetles. Not a lot, but a little bit here and there. And it's got a little bit of color. You can see a beetle in there and a beetle in there. There's some spots. Not much. Not enough to call it really heavy ambrosia. So it's mostly just kind of a swampy soft maple. And it's got cracks in it. This is the center of the tree got some heart shake. It's pretty bad. I mean, it's not parts of it that aren't ugly are nice. So working on a Christmas present for the daughter, and I cut some stuff out, and then I started looking at it. I'll show you. So my youngest has a little bit of space in between the stove and the sink in her little New York apartment. Why she lives there is beyond me. And she, boy, Dad, it'd be great if I had a cutting board that went there, and it'd be nice if it was 10 3/4 by 13 3/4 by 1.5 inches, not to be too specific, and you can leave the corners square. So I've got this maple. Maple makes good, high volume cutting boards. So I cut some pieces out of it. I cut some chunks off the good side and, cut this sort of stuff off of it. And came up with this thing. I threw some accent pieces of some, I think, sapelli, kind of a faux mahogany. Anyway, for a little bit of color, and I'll glue this together, and it will be strong and probably not warp and twist too much because I've scattered the pieces around. And for the most part, these were quarter sawn to begin with. So that's good. While I'm doing that, and I'm getting ready for the next phase, which is mixing up a batch of glue and gluing and clamping that, which is, a fun thing to do. But while you've got glue out, well, it'd be nice to glue something else up. And so I started thinking about making a big vase for, the bride. I grabbed some other pieces of that, and I've got a 30-degree angle on the side of two of them at the moment. I decided I'd, include you in the process. So I've got these three pieces that I grabbed from that plank while I was doing this. This has got one really nice ambrosia beetle line in it. That's okay. It'll be the feature side. Anyway, I haven't cut this one yet, but I've been cutting the bark edges off. Everything, like I say, is pretty much quarter sawn in this plank, which is why the heart shake is so vivid in it, because it's the heart of the tree. Makes sense. Anyway, so I'm going to cut 6 pieces, about 3 5/8 wide. This is my notepad. Draw a circle, divide it into 6, project the line out, measure from point to point. That's my size. So I'll be able to make a vase, and then I'm probably going to put a, I don't know, I'm thinking of putting some strips of bloodwood in the joints. So these things, instead of being 3 5/8, will actually be like 3 1/2. And I'll have little quarters pieces of bloodwood in the joints of all of these things to give me 6 vivid red lines. And then probably put an accent bloodwood base on it, and then spin the thing round, hollow it out, give it a bit of a tulip shape. Be a pretty large volume vase. I mean, I'll be able to get, do the numbers here. I'll be able to get this thing out to maybe 4 3/4 inches inside at the top, or maybe a little bit more at the top, and a good solid 3 in the barrel. It'd be nice, I think. She might appreciate it. So that's where I am. I'm about to cut this piece and then cut the 6 V-striped, V-angled pieces, and then move on to cutting some accent bloodwood, and then going through the process of trying to figure out how to clamp this stuff together. I think I'll use some band clamps. I think I've got some kicking around. I've got some new 7-inch ones I just bought. couple of weeks ago. They could come in handy for this. This being ostensibly 6 inches, but it looks like 7, you know, could come in really handy. Anyway, so there's that for clamping. Probably want to put a false bottom and a false top on it for right now so that I can true it on the lathe and then apply my finished bottom to it, spin the thing round one more time. Anyway, that's how it's going to go. Let's see how that goes. I don't know what to say. Cut some wood, cut some angles. Hope I get my 30 degrees right. Then cut some bloodwood for shims. Maybe glue before the end of the day. Cool. Cool. Now I've got to get myself a 3.5 from tip to tip. Shouldn't be all that hard to do. And so I'll do the next one off the face and then flip it over and do the one after that. 3.5, 3.5, 7. So even if it doesn't work out at all, I've still got 8. Good. All right. 3.5. Now that's 3.5 up here at this level. That's what I should be doing. That's how I'm doing it. All right, there's my 3.5 right there. Real close. And that should work perfectly. Perfectly. I mean, what's wrong with perfectly, right? Old tired saw. So I have to measure the, I always have to measure to something else to get it right. That's 7 5/8, and that's 7 5/8. That's it. That's me. All right. This should work. Don't particularly have to worry about scratching or dulling these outside edges because they're not going to matter. They're going to all get trimmed back. Cool. All right, here we go. I'm glad they all aren't like this. Kind of, I mean, there's nothing wrong. It's a beautiful piece of wood, right? It's just a little bit bland. A little bit of character here and there. Kind of nice. This got a bug hole in it. This one's got a line in it. And this was kind of bland. All right. But that is 6. That's a beautiful thing. Let's, I don't know what. Move a few things around, clean up a little bit. Be right with you. Okay, so I've got a clamp loosely on this thing because there's no point in tightening it. I've got those shims to put in, 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch shims to put inside the joints. But just to get a first look at how, should I proceed, right? How did my 30-degree angles work out? Is this good enough that I can continue and check it out? It's just, I'm not bragging. I'm feeling very lucky, competent maybe. I have my saw tuned up well enough that when I set it at 30 degrees, it That thing produces a cut that's 30 degrees. It's great. So I've got another clamp. The nice thing about these clamps is they're very flexible. The nice thing about these clamps is they will hook the business end of one clamp to the tail of the other, which is great. The downside of it is it seems like I always have to do that, but that's all right. I've got a few, and so this is going to require one at the top, one at the bottom. I am going to use epoxy glue on this. So the point of that statement is you don't need, it's not like white glue or hide glue, or you don't need great contact. The epoxy glue with a little bit of filler in it, it takes, will fill. We'll fill a crack, we'll fill a joint. These things are very, very good. I'm not concerned. I'm not making up for bad joinery. I'm just, the epoxy means that I don't have to crank this thing so tight that the wood fibers, you know, are like glued together or grown together. Anyway, I'm really happy. Got to here. Now I need to cut 6 shims to go into these joints. And then, I don't know if this is going to work out, but then I'll be ready for, I think, ready for glue. I'll also, when I glue this, whether it's today or not, when I glue this, I will put something at the bottom, piece of pine at the bottom, just drop it on that and glue it onto that thing to make a good center so that I can mount this on the lathe. Put maybe another piece to go on this side, just glued down for a center point. Anyway, that's the dream. Let's cut some layout, grab a piece of bloodwood, cut some shims, and see where this takes me. Well, that unleashed a cloud of dust, but I got 6 pieces of bloodwood, a couple of burns, but I don't think inside the joint it's going to be a problem. Anyway, so enough, maybe a little test fit. Well, it's starting to be a lot of pieces to keep track of, but let's see what happens. Looks pretty good. And I've done a thing like this before, and what is no doubt going to be required is some sort of a spacer inside here that will keep these strips from falling in too far. Shouldn't be that big a deal. A little hexagon, loosely fitting hexagon with corners that touch these things so that they won't shrink. When I'm gluing, they could move around. Anyway, so that's looking terrific. This is now a thing, right? Give it a couple of cranks, and there you go. So this is a lot to go through to get something that's ultimately going to be, you know, at the top a 1/4 of an inch thick, down at the bottom maybe 3/8. But on the bottom, the 3/8 will be in the middle, or the small part, and at the top, that 1/4 inch is going to be just the outside edge of this. So this is what you need to do. Anyway, it's getting late in the day for me. You see, it's getting dark a little bit outside. I think I'm just going to fuss with this and maybe fuss with a piece for the bottom, and come back to this thing tomorrow and do the gluing that's going to be required. If I try to glue it now, I could be in a rush, and rushing, you know, I don't need to. Why do it if you don't need to? So I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll glue this then. It'll give me a chance to make these little hexagons go in the middle, and maybe whip up something for the bottom, and I'll glue that, not so much to this, but glue that at the same time. I don't want to glue it to this thing because I'm not really in great control as to what the bottom condition is going to be. And so I'm best off, I think, getting this prepared well enough to put on the lathe to turn it into some kind of a cylinder, at which point I can part it off and make a bottom that's absolutely square, and in perpendicular to the center line of the cylinder, then glue my finished bottom on. That's the dream. So that'll happen tomorrow. You know, if you want to come in, and it's a Saturday, but you know what they say, if you don't come in on Saturday, don't even ask if you can come in on Sunday. You know? Yeah. All right, tomorrow. I think I'm going to rip a couple of pieces off this chunk and glue them together, dress the edges and glue them together so that at some point I'll be able to cut some pieces to make a bottom for this thing. I think the bottom's going to have to be in 6 pieces in segments of a pie. This isn't really wide enough to do that. I'm going to glue some strips. This is set to go, I think, good enough. You never know. This measures 6 5/16 to call it. This measures 6 5/16. It's a beautiful thing. 2 cuts. I'm going to run these through the saw and do a quick, you know, kind of table saw joint on these things, and then chop these things into 4, glue them together, or something like that. Anyway, I need to be up that high. These strips will live at the bottom of the thing. No one will ever see anything other than the edges of it poking out. I guess the plant stems will see the inside of it. Anyway, but they'll make a nice floor for inside that. I'm going to chop this into 4 pieces. This is 14 inches long, so 4 pieces will be like 3.5. And then eventually I'll cut this into 60-degree angled pieces, and it will make the bottom for that on another glue up. A couple of glue ups to go. So first one will be this. This will produce my pieces. Be great. This is going to be great. All right, let's go do some chopping. All right, so I've got these. I came to the realization that I'm going to do my layout for these pieces off the side. All I need is 2 pieces. They need to be glued. They need to be glued pretty well. They're going to be glued like that. A couple of clamps. Should be super. I'm going to use, ultimately I'm going to use epoxy glue for this thing, so I'm going to use epoxy glue for this, gluing these 2 pieces together. This is the Yunko High's epoxy glue, which is mixed 5-to-1. Like I can tell what that's going to be. Oh well. That looks like 5-to-1. Hopefully this works. Small amounts don't mix well with the crude techniques that I use to mix things with a stick. So I'll be a minute. I sure hope this works. I could use white glue, you know, I've got some, but it seems so wrong. If I'm going to ultimately use epoxy, it seems wrong that I'd use white glue. All right. You know, poorly measured mix and poorly agitated should be perfect. I don't know what could go wrong. It's a little thin. Not sure I like that. Oh, that's wet. That's wet. I'll wet this one. You get two ridiculously large clamps that I pulled out to do this with. Ridiculous. Oh well, so these are wet. Plenty of epoxy. These are my two pieces. That's that. All right, you've seen it happen. I don't know what to say. I'm going to mop this side, and tomorrow, if this works, I'll put this side down and run it lightly through the planer, and that should take care of leveling everything out. Looks good. Good, 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 good. All right, it's Miller time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with me. This is the end of day one on the flower pot. Ho, ho, ho. We'll see how it goes. Big day tomorrow. Lots of glue.